mohawkvalleyliving.com for more information.
It's time for the Cooper Group's road trip to the village of Westernville. We stop in to see the guys at Cooper Ford in Camden. Lee is smiling as always and is happy to hook us up with the exciting new Ford Focus. It's surprising when you detour off Route 46 north of Rome to find the quaint little village of Westernville. There are so many beautiful historic homes in such a small area. You can't help but think about the families who originally settled here. General William Floyd would certainly recognize his home, beautifully maintained by the Marriotts.
People started settling in this area about 1790, and the date was primarily because of everything had settled down after the Revolution in the Mohawk Valley. So they came here looking for land, and they came here looking for new adventure, the Fort Stanwix was the outpost. Everything else was wilderness above that. But the land was very, very fertile, and so they started settling up the Mohawk River north of Fort Stanwix. The heyday pretty much coincided with the Black River Canal coming through. The people anticipated that. They had news that there was going to be a great event going to happen in town, and that was the Black River Canal. So in anticipation to that, they decided to invest in their houses. They invested in businesses. And then during the canal heyday, of course, farmers were able to take their product, get them to market. They were able to welcome visitors here and feed them and entertain them, and so it was quite a prosperous time. In fact, Northwestern was actually more prosperous than Westernville at that time. We consider ourselves caretakers just for a brief time in history. This house, if it's properly cared for, will be passed for generations and generations, as people have done before us. We're the 10th owner of the house since the General was here, and it's on the it's a National Historic Landmark, which puts it among 2,300 structures across the United States. And so it's a special responsibility for us, and we're actually taking the house. We've been here 30 years, and we're taking the house back to the original time the General was here, including paint colors and in the way we're restoring it with the plaster and so on.
I lack conviction in my
Across the road from the General William Floyd homestead is what was the site of a blacksmith shop. Fortunately for all of us, there's going to be a museum here in the future as envisioned by and as created by Dr. Marriott. The interior will house artifacts from the Revolutionary War period and from General Floyd.
Money never took us far.
When you take your detour off of Route 46 and drive into Westernville, drive over to the library and pick up the tour book of the village of Westernville, and you'll find out that it is divided into the upper village and the lower village. I am presently standing in front of the lower village, and notice as you walk along, it's better to walk than to drive. Notice as you walk around all of the beautiful porches. They were designed by Frank Warkup, who lived in the house that's behind me. And as interesting as the fact that he did all these porches is the fact that his daughter lived in this house behind me for 90 years. If you keep going along this street behind me, across Route 46, you'll come to Woods Valley Ski Area, and you'll be going along George Street. Now, usually you would think that's because it was named after somebody by the name of Mr. George. That's not the case here in Westernville. It's because on this tiny little street, there were 3 men who lived, all of whom had the first name of George.
It must have been Wash Loomis's ghost.
I'm standing on the banks of the Mohawk River. It was the lifeblood of many, many villages in the Mohawk Valley. But it was also the death of one of the villages, and I'm talking, of course, about Delta, because when it came time to supply water to the Erie Canal, a dam had to be built, and it was built down in Delta, and the entire village had to be moved, and the area was flooded. Can you imagine what it would have been like back then to be told that you had to have your entire house picked up and moved? But that happened right here near the town of Western. At the end of Main Street here in Westernville, there used to be the Wager House. When Lake Delta was created, the the line was drawn, and the Wagers were told that their house was going to be inside the line, so it was destroyed. As it turned out, though, the water did not come up that far, so had they stayed, they could have had a very beautiful lakeside house, but that wasn't meant to be. Today, though, you can still find parts of it here in Westernville because there were some salvaged parts to the house, which became a part of the only house which I'm standing in front of.
There's a barn that once held horses that
I'm across the street from the Yellow General Store here in what's called downtown Westernville. Behind me is the Milton Brayton House, and this house has been continuously occupied by members of that family for 170 years. Talk about family history. If you're a skier and you come here to Woods Valley in Western, you will see a tall smokestack, the one that's behind me. Now that smokestack originally belonged to a tannery, but in 1880 it converted from a tannery to a cannery. We'll find out more about that in a second.
The brick chimney at the base of Woods Valley Hill is all that remains of the original Olney and Floyd Canning Company that operated in the late 1800s. Today, G.J. Olney Incorporated operates on the same site as the original cannery.
I'm in the offices of G.J. Olney Incorporated, and it's really very much like a museum because you look behind me and on the wall are these labels that were the covering for cans. I guess back then they were the billboards of advertising, and they gave you an idea very colorfully and very artfully of what was inside all the cans. At this time of the year, many of you are getting out your cans to make pumpkin pies and the like for Thanksgiving. And this takes me back again, into the 1940s, because these were cans from the 1940s. And I can remember my grandmother and my mother opening these cans without the benefit of an electric can opener. And they would be making their pumpkin pies. This was golden pumpkin. Then there was a thing that I hated the most, garden spinach. But the one that I loved the most, the creamed corn. The Olneys are no longer in the canning business, but they are still in food processing. As a matter of fact, when we visited George's Farm Products late in the summer, you saw a machine that was cleaning green beans. That was manufactured here. And odds are, when you pick up something this Thanksgiving, it will have gone through a machine made right here in Westernville by the Olneys.
Westernville is a good place to live. We always grew up in Westernville and loved the area, and after we all graduated from college, this is where we came back to.
We say goodbye to Westernville for now and encourage you to take the detour the next time you're driving up Route 46. We head back into Rome for a bite to eat at the Plaza.
In 1907, the world-famous Plaza opened in New York City. That very same year, here on the corner of River Street and East Dominic Street, another plaza opened. It's the Plaza Restaurant, and here it is 100 years later. It's still here, still being run by the same family, the Colangelos, and the food back then I'm sure was excellent. It is still today.
Well, I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people, I enjoy seeing people. We get the best clientele in the city here, so it's enjoyable. I'm happy to say. So we had to satisfy someone, right, 100 years.
I spoke with Jimmy Colangelo during lunch, and he told me how the plaza way back in the earlier century used to be a speakeasy during Prohibition. The plaza opens today at 3 o'clock, and if you come here this afternoon, you can meet Jimmy yourself, and if you order any entree, he will give you a free side of gnocchi. The non-Italians among you might have a hard time finding on the menu because it looks like gnocchis, but it's gnocchis. And they are made with, of all things, not pasta, but with potatoes. And I can tell you right now, they are magnifico.
What we can see, it's time for the Cooper Group's road trip.